Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to start in just a few moments as I see some people are joining now, so just hold on tight for just a sec. All right. No, you're not having technical difficulties. Nobody was talking. We're letting some people still log in as I see them logging in now. All right. Thank you all and welcome to today's webinar, Beyond the Factory Floor, Decoding Manufacturing Costs and Impact Profits. I do want to start with some quick housekeeping. All attendees are muted by default, so you don't have to worry if we can hear you. However, we welcome your questions, so feel free to submit your questions at any point of the webinar using that little chat bubble with the question mark in it. You can also chat with us or anyone in the webinar using the two chat bubbles icon on the top right corner. And then lastly, you can engage with us in real-time reactions at the bottom left-hand corner. I will confirm that a copy of this recording will be shared by email, so you don't need to request it. You don't need to send us a question on that. We will definitely be sending that over to you. And just in case you are not familiar with ECI, our mission is to be a business solution expert for you, supporting the entrepreneurial spirit and profitability growth of small and medium-sized manufacturing businesses. So we're definitely here to be your partner and continue to help you grow. Okay, now to introductions. My name is Monique. I am here as the Manufacturing Divisional Marketing Manager here at ECI, and I am honored to help moderate the webinar. I'm going to pass this over to our speakers to introduce themselves, and then I'll jump back in for the Q&A portion at the end. So speakers, they're all yours.
Thanks, Monique. Hi, my name is Hillary Johnson. I have been in manufacturing for over 12 years of my career in a number of capacities. As you can see, there is engineering, marketing, or both, small companies, yay. I've been to, in companies anywhere from 4 people to in metal additive manufacturing or major enterprises for medical devices. So I've totally been in a lot of your shoes, you know, in a variety of capacities, getting my hands dirty, being covered in metal shavings, love that, running the CNC machines. I've also been on the shop floor though, trying to figure out how to maximize production from adjusting raw material costs or supply chain or optimizing profits, all the way to figure out how to fix the machines or just measuring machine capacity. So I definitely have been there before, but I'm gonna let Kelly introduce himself.
Awesome, thanks Hillary. So hi everyone, my name is Kelly Allenbach and I am the VP of Integrated Solutions here for the Manufacturing Division at ECI. I have been in manufacturing for about 16 years, so don't let that handsome mug fool you there. I oversee the manufacturing ERPs, you know, working closely with our teams to support and grow the division. Manufacturing for me has just been a core part of my professional career. It's something that I am truly passionate about. I've spent many years helping businesses optimize their operations, navigating technology transitions, driving efficiencies through smarter software solutions. And truly, I'm excited to be here today with Hillary to talk about uncovering hidden manufacturing costs and certainly giving you the tools to gain better visibility and control over your business.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we're gonna be talking about today, just give you a little overview. So we know that there's some volatility, just a little bit going on in your current landscape in manufacturing, and understanding your production costs is critical for success. So total manufacturing costs, which I'll be referring to as TMC as well, is a comprehensive sum of all expenses incurred during the production process. And that helps provide a clear picture of your financial resources, which are required to bring your products to life. So for businesses of all sizes, I don't care where you are on the map, it's super, super crucial to accurately calculate your total manufacturing costs. And it's not just an exercise, it's a real strategic way that you can significantly impact your bottom line. By meticulously tracking and analyzing all of these different costs, you can gain the power to optimize your pricing strategies, you can identify cost reduction opportunities, you can enhance overall profitability as well. There's a plethora of things we could talk about, but in this webinar, we'll explore the importance of how these total manufacturing costs and how they can empower you to make your more informed decisions that minimize production costs, maximize your profit margins, and strengthen your competitive edge in the market. I'm also going to break down some complex concepts, clarifying often misinterpreted terms, and provide you with some practical steps for you to actually calculate this yourselves and leverage this total manufacturing cost effectively. Whether you're looking to enhance your operations, improve your financial transparency, or make more informed pricing decisions, especially with the current state of prices, fluctuating. This webinar will hopefully help equip you with the knowledge and tools to navigate the complexities of your manufacturing costs. And then Kelly will be talking about real world examples that he's able to provide. So let's go ahead and dive on into this. All right, total manufacturing costs, again, TMC, is a critical concept for a lot of you, small, medium, large, like I said. It encompasses all expenses incurred during the production process, providing a comprehensive view of the financial resources required to bring, again, your products to life. You're going to hear a little bit of repetitiveness, but it's really, really critical when I repeat myself. So understanding TMC is not just about your number crunching. It really is there to help you understand what's happening in your company and make the best decisions possible. Again, to optimize or drive profitability, whatever. Without a process for calculating these costs, you can encounter some seriously significant risks related to key business decisions and your profitability. So by meticulously tracking and analyze your TMC, you can gain the power to optimize your pricing strategies, as mentioned, so you can accurately calculate and ensure that your product prices reflect the actual costs of production, preventing underselling and maximizing profit margins. You can also identify cost reduction opportunities. So you can dissect all of those costs into a direct material, your labor, any overhead, and then you can pinpoint areas for optimizing those costs, such as streamlining your procurement processes, or improve on your labor efficiency, or reduce unnecessary overhead expenses. You can also increase your profits by understanding these total manufacturing costs, which empower you to make those decisions in order to make those adjustments throughout your entire business. Again, strengthening your business as a whole and your competitive advantage. So calculating, again, is not merely an exercise. It is a strategic tool that empowers you as a whole, as a company, in this crazy world that we currently live in. All right. So let's see. So understanding the distinction between and indirect manufacturing costs is crucial for accurate cost analysis and informed decision making. So while both types of costs contribute to the overall production expenses, their nature and allocation do differ, making it critical to understand the differences. So I've noticed over years that some might kind of confuse what qualifies as direct versus indirect costs, which can impact your product pricing and your cost control. So these numbers can help ensure that the product prices reflect the true cost of production and contribute to, of course, profitability. By identifying and analyzing both of these costs, you can actually pinpoint areas for cost reduction and then optimize how you utilize those resources. So understanding these two costs can significantly impact the profitability of individual products and your production lines. So now let's go into what the differences are. So direct costs are expenses that can be directly attributed to the production of specific products. So for example, traceability. The costs can be directly linked to a specific product that are easily identifiable. For the variability, costs vary with the quantity of the products produced. So for instance, as your production increases, so do the direct costs related to that product. This direct relationship between output and expenses allow for precise cost allocation, and product-specific financial analysis. So some examples of this would be like raw materials. So the cost of raw materials used in the production process, such as for steel, fabric for fabricated parts, plastic for injection molding, things like that. I even have an example of wood for furniture making. So lots of different examples there. Direct labor, so the wages and benefits paid to your employees directly involved in the manufacturing process. That includes your production workers, your assemblers, your quality control, your fabricators, whatever you got out there on the floor, putting time into these products. And then manufacturing consumables is another example. So items used during the production process, such as your lubricants, your solvents, your adhesives, your cutting fluids, all those kinds of things. All right, let's dive into indirect manufacturing. So indirect manufacturing costs are expenses that support the production process, but cannot be directly attributed to specific product. So cannot be directly contributed. These costs are typically shared across multiple products or the entire manufacturing operation. So for traceability, costs are shared across multiple products or the entire manufacturing process, and they're much more general costs. So variability would be costs that are fixed and remain relatively constant regardless of the production volume. Okay, so some examples would be your factory overhead, and that includes like your production facility, like your rent, your property taxes, your insurance, all of those, your utilities, of course, electricity, water, gas. I mean, those are really critical right now. And even going back to make sure that you've checked that recently with raising costs of everything is really important, especially during this time right now. So depreciation, the decline, so another example is depreciation. So the decline in value of your machinery, making sure that you're tied in with your accounting to make sure that that's being allocated for. Your maintenance and repair, and so making sure that anything you're doing, if you have to hire someone outside or even the people on the inside, making sure that you are allocating for those extra expenses. And then indirect labor, and again, this would be wages and benefits for your employees who support the manufacturing process but aren't directly involved in the production. So that would be like your supervisors, your maintenance staff, your quality control, front of house, those kinds of employees. And actually, my apologies. Let me go back to this one. Kelly, I'm going to throw it over your way. My apologies. And if
no worries.
Yeah.
No worries. So, you know, when we look at this, right, this is so important to have that distinction between direct and indirect costs. And I just wanted to share a perspective of sort of what we're hearing in the market, right? So many are coming to us here at ECI looking at our solutions. And one of the big things that they're after, and one of the first things that they say is, how can you control costs and how can I look at those? You know, we've got a ton of tool sets to help you with that, but just let's just dive into some of those costs and what we're kind of hearing. So, you know, it's the rising material costs and supply chain volatility that you mentioned there, Hillary. You know, many manufacturers they're just struggling with the unpredictable material costs nowadays. Due to the ongoing supply of these tariffs and supply chain disruptions, right? Labor shortages and workforce costs, that is still very much a challenge. It's a major challenge right now. And we need to be able to help these companies find a way to just make sure they're making the right investments with regards to automation and technology to help offset some of that workforce gap. That's crucial. Operational costs, you mentioned this as well, just rising prices. They're just really impacting operational expenses, especially for those manufacturers that are running the intensive processes, right? Many companies are looking for or looking into efficient equipment or operations to help control these costs. The push for digital transformation and cost efficiency, it's huge. More and more we see manufacturers coming to us saying, what do you have in the way of ERP? What about, you know, MES or APS solutions? What automated solutions can you have that can help me improve efficiency and reduce the waste? Companies that have invested in these data-driven decision-making things they're just seeing better control of those costs. There's an overwhelming sense of, if you can't kind of just see what I'm getting at here, is the demand for greater visibility, right? Manufacturers are just focused more on end-to-end visibility to control these costs and improve their forecasting. you did a phenomenal job sort of just talking about direct and indirect costs. And I just want to take a second to kind of reiterate. So direct costs, again, because this is so important, they're expenses that can be directly traced to a production of a specific product, such as the raw materials or direct labor. The indirect costs, expenses that support that production process, but aren't necessarily tied to a specific product. And so, again, you might be asking, well, Kelly, why are you reiterating this? Hillary did a phenomenal job, and you're right. But I do it because, like Hillary said, we're going to have a little bit of repetition in this, but it truly does matter. And understanding both of these and which one is which is just going to help you in setting accurate profit margins and making informed cost-cutting decisions.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. That's all super insightful. Okay, on to the next. Okay, so some other important terms that are often misinterpreted are manufacturing and production costs. These two are often used interchangeably in manufacturing, but hold distinct meanings and implications. So understanding the difference between your manufacturing costs and your production costs can impact a business's cost, like your business's cost analysis, pricing strategies, and your financial reporting. So manufacturing costs focus solely on expenses associated with creating a product. So they include your direct materials, your direct labor, and your manufacturing overhead. So production costs encompass a broader scope. So including all the expenses incurred by the business to produce and sell its products. So this includes your manufacturing costs as well as additional expenses like your marketing, your distribution, your administrative costs, any consulting stuff that you have. So why are manufacturing and production costs so important? So accurate cost analysis requires differentiating manufacturing and production costs. This distinction allows your business to identify areas for cost reduction within the manufacturing processes and in other areas of your operations, okay? Another important one is manufacturing costs play a critical role in determining product pricing, ensuring that your prices reflect your true cost of production and then contribute to profitability. Your true cost of production, again, that's super important, right? These costs are also crucial for a component of your financial reporting, and that helps provide the insights to the production process efficiency and just the overall well-being of your business. And Kelly, I'm going to toss it back over to you if you have anything you'd like to add here.
Yeah, I just want to kind of quickly talk about some examples of the hidden costs and things that, at least come my way in the sales world here. And I think it's really important to just throw this distinction out that a lot of people have a hard time getting a grip on costs, right? So it's important to state right out of the gate that anyone struggling with this, you are certainly not alone. We see a ton of manufacturers come over here that really struggle to get a foothold into controlling these costs. For me, many manufacturers that I talk to struggle with identifying these costs that eat into their profitability. They could come from inefficiencies, or maybe they're on-track downtime, excessive scrap, rework, underutilized labor, you name it. A common challenge that they face, and I see, is that it's the inaccurate job costing due to maybe it's outdated or disconnected systems, and that leads to poor quoting and pricing strategies. I mentioned this earlier. There is so much supply chain disruption, material waste, and just unplanned machine maintenance that affects so many businesses. And that drives up the cost without them having this clear visibility into their root causes. So, so many manufacturers, I think they underestimate the impact of the indirect cost, things like excessive overtime, inefficient scheduling, unoptimized machine usage. It all adds up quickly without the right data. And companies make decisions based on assumptions rather than those real-time insights that lead to those unnecessary expenses and essentially missed profits. So we're going to talk a little bit as we go through this about how our solutions can really help you get a control into controlling these costs.
Yeah, that's great. Like, I hear about job costing all the time, so totally, it's how hard it is to calculate. So awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Of course.
All right, so there are 5 steps. We're going to break it down a little bit for you for calculating these manufacturing costs. And I'm going to give you an example. So again, like I'm going to say a lot of words, but I'm going to show you an example as well that breaks it down so it's a little bit easier to just comprehend. Okay, so here are the 5 steps. So step 1 is calculate the expense associated with your raw materials. So direct material costs represent a significant portion of your total manufacturing costs. So to accurately calculate these costs, gather information on the quantity and the cost of each raw material used in your production processes. This information is can be obtained from your bill of materials, FOMs, your POs, your inventory records, anything along those lines, and then multiply the quantity of each material by its respective cost to determine the total direct material cost. Dynamics, maintaining a dynamic response online and online presence. That's kind of a weird one. Sorry about that. I can't talk all of a sudden. And then step number 2 is to compute the expenses related to labor. Okay, so direct labor costs encompass the wages and benefits paid to your employees directly involved in the manufacturing process. We talked a little bit about this earlier. This includes your production workers, your assemblers, your fabricators, your quality, and your machine operators, etc. To calculate the direct labor cost, track the time these employees spend on manufacturing activities using your timekeeping systems, production logs, employee timesheets, and this can also be, obviously, if you don't have an ERP system, this can totally be calculated in your ERP system. And then multiply those labor hours by the corresponding wage rates to determine the total direct labor cost. Step 3, determine manufacturing overhead costs. So unlike direct materials and direct labor, manufacturing overhead costs, again, are those indirect expenses that support the entire process, but not directly contributed to the creation of that particular product. So again, we had mentioned like your rent, depreciation of machinery, utilities, all those kinds of things. But calculating manufacturing overhead costs can be more complex as it involves various indirect expenses. So like your predetermined overhead rate, activity-based accounting principles, or activity-based costing principles, and standard costing. So compute the overall, so step 4 is to compute the overall manufacturing cost. Once you've calculated that direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead costs, you can then add those together. We're going to say quickly, but probably not always quickly, and add those together and arrive at your TMC cost for the product. So just to kind of break it down simply, your TMC equals your direct material cost plus your direct labor cost plus your manufacturing overhead cost. Okay, all right, lays it out there. Again, I'm going to give you an example to help kind of digest this. And step number 5 is to determine the cost per item. So to calculate the manufacturing cost per item, divide the total manufacturing cost by the number of units produced. Okay, another little equation. Manufacturing cost per item equals your TMC cost divided by the number of units sold. So this cost per item provides that valuable insight into your profitability for each of your products, and it can be used for pricing strategies and cost reduction initiatives. Okay, now here's the example. All right, so we have a steel sheet, let's say, for example, it's half a pound. So again, we're using pretty like rounded numbers, so this may not apply, but we're gonna use it. So you have half a pound at $5 per pound. Okay? That equals your cost of $2.50, right? Then you've got your direct labor. So let's say you've got a worker on the floor, they work for half an hour, and they're $20 an hour. So again, divide 20 divided by 2 is 10. That's your $10 because it's only for half an hour. So you've got your factory rent. Let's say it's $1,000 a month, and you divide that by the number of units. So we're going to produce 100 of whatever this item is. And so it's going to be $10 per unit. And then utilities, you've got $500 a month in utilities. That would be nice, honestly. But and you divide that by 100 units. You get $5 per unit. And then with the depreciation, let's say you've got $200 a month in depreciation. And again, you've got your 100 units, you then have $2 per unit. Okay, so then, and you also have your maintenance and repair, that's another $100. And then you've got your indirect labor. So let's say your supervisor, and he's got 0.1 going into this. And at $30 an hour, he equals your $3. So again, to get your TMC, we're going to add up all of those together. So your total is addition. Okay, so $250, which is your direct, your $10, which is your direct labor, and then your overhead, which is 21, equals $32.50. Okay, now what is it per item? We're going to take that $32.50. We're going to divide it again by the number of units produced, and it's going to come out to be a roughly 32 cents. Now, I would probably round that up, but if you keep it at that 0.5, the extra half, because that adds up after a while, but you can choose the allocation. But for this particular one, we're at 32.5 cents per unit. Okay. Kelly, did that make sense to you? Made sense to me.
I followed it. Yep.
Okay. Okay, awesome, cool. All right, and again, you will get a recording of this, so you don't have to memorize all this. All right, so let's talk about some of the benefits of TMC. So understanding and calculating your TMC is not, again, should not be an exercise, just something that you do to do it. It's really important, and it's really strategic, and it really helps you in so many different ways across your business. And I know I've said this over and over again, but this can really help with your bottom line and just sustainability and making sure that you are calculating, or you are accounting for all of those costs. And many of you will see these benefits and the most impact when you're taking the proper steps to calculate and calculate accurately your manufacturing costs. So example, lower costs. So accurate TMC calculations provide you with a clear understanding of the expenses of bringing your products to life. So you can implement cost reduction strategies by identifying areas of excessive spending, such as like negotiating better deals with your suppliers. And this can even be like reaching out to other suppliers who supply like those basic items and spread out your vendors. Streamlining your production processes, or just getting, make sure you have an MES system in place to make sure that everything's being utilized. And then optimizing inventory management. This is really critical right now since inventory is kind of all over the place and a lot of people are struggling to manage this. These measures can lead to significant savings, and they can improve your profit margins, and then again, just help out with your company as a whole in the market. Enhanced transparency regarding your financial well-being. So calculating these costs serves as a transparent window into your financial health of your entire business. So by tracking and analyzing your TMC over time, you can identify your trends, assess the impact of cost reduction initiatives, and make informed decisions about how you allocate your resources, how you're pricing your products, and how you invest in general. This transparency really does empower you to proactively manage your finances and make just more informed decisions in the long term for growth and sustainability. And that's really something critical that people are really trying to think about right now. Make well-informed choices regarding pricing. So accurate calculations are essential for establishing your competitive and profitable product pricing. So by understanding the true cost of your production, you can avoid underselling your products and ensuring that your pricing actually does reflect the value that you deliver to your customers. And with that data-driven approach to pricing, you can enhance your margins, you can contribute to the long-term financial part of your entire business. And then reducing waste. So understanding these costs, again, they can help you identify and totally identify where these wasteful spendings are and potentially eliminate them or figure out how to be profitable off of them. By analyzing direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead costs, you can pinpoint areas where resources are really being underutilized or unnecessarily consumed. And that awareness can lead to just an implementation of waste reduction, as I mentioned earlier. And then also maybe including some lean manufacturing practices, whether you can optimize your inventory better or, putting it in different places in your warehouse, something like that. and also for improve your production planning as a whole. So some wisdom that helps enhance this is it provides you with a valuable insight into the efficiency of your entire production process. So by analyzing the cost per production unit, you can identify the areas where you're just being inefficient and implement corrective measures to improve your process flows, reduce your downtime on your machines or your people, and then optimize your resource utilizations again. This really is about data at the end of the day and how to process your improvements to your entire business as a whole, which can just overall help your bottom line. Kelly, any additional thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I just want to talk a little bit about, there's a lot of great information here. But more for me, I just want to take a second to talk about what I am seeing sort of after this is typically done, right? So somebody comes to us, raises their hand, they're looking for help trying to get a handle on these costs. They put the proper tools in place from ECI, and then sort of what does that lead to for them? And everything I'm about to tell you here, and I could go on and on and on, trust me, for quite some time, but everything I tell you here is truly factual with current customers that, again, raise their hands, and we're looking at what was going on before and now what's going on now that they've had ECI implemented to help with these things and put the proper tools in place. And first and foremost, I will tell you, it starts with better decision making. Absolutely the most important thing to say here. Accurate cost of data, it just enables that leadership to make the right choices about production and sourcing and even just their investments. So that's the big thing that we see. You mentioned a couple of these already, Hillary, but just, reduce waste, higher efficiencies, right? Identifying the cost drivers helps to streamline those processes. It helps to optimize the resource allocation. It helps to just plain and simple cut down on these inefficiencies. We also see a lot of improved cash flow management. I mean, this is factual. Understanding that true production cost is clearly going to help avoid overproduction, excess inventory, and really unnecessary spending. It's improvement to real-time data and reporting. So we give manufacturers like you clear visibility into these job costs, into the labor efficiencies, into material usage, the machine performance, and just help you identify your cost drivers. With all of this, you're going to get the improved job costing, of course, and probably really important quoting accuracy. So again, we look at a lot of companies that come here and once they get a handle on things and they have the right tools in place, they're seeing their profit margins go up because they have more accurate costing tracking, and they have jobs that are priced more profitably. They avoid underquoting things that erode your margins and your profits. Hillary mentioned this as well. The inventory, just getting a control on your inventory material, that's a huge thing today. We have the tools to help reduce this waste and optimize material purchasing and the usage, preventing over ordering or even unnecessary stockpiling. And then the next three I think are kind of important to me. They're all important, but I really hone in on these last three. It's the automation of a lot of manual processes. So many mistakes can be made when you leave things up to manual processes. We are all human, we know that. But when you have the tools and the automation in place to help you with these costs, you get to start, reducing reliance on spreadsheets and these disconnected systems that I've mentioned before. We help manufacturers streamline the operations and eliminate those costly inefficiencies. Number two is that more predictable and scalable growth model. So when you have an accurate cost tracking ERP in place and the right tools to do this, businesses really can confidently scale operations without unexpected financial surprises. Cost, right? That's cost. And then the last one here, I think super important, is it gives you a stronger competitive positioning. So companies that come to us, we talk about scale, we talk about growth. We see these companies just turn over in terms of, not turnover, I'm sorry, but roll over these, I come in when I'm only making X amount of revenue, and now I'm exponentially more, and it's because I'm doing all these great things. And companies can price products more competitively and still maintain healthy margins while they scale and they grow. again, I could probably spend a half an hour talking about what I see, what I hear, what I even suggest, but those are a few at least that stick out to me, Hillary.
That's awesome. That's really good insight. And we're doing pretty good on time. So I'm going to share something that when it comes to reduce waste, a really good example I like to think about is so Snyder pretzels, right? Like those wonderful sourdough, big, crunchy, salty goodness.
Those are
I
good.
realize this is a food comparison. However, they're delicious, right? But that's a great company. So for example, those big sourdough pretzels used to break up into pieces, right, along the production process. And I'm sure that they're like, okay, what do we do with these? Well, why don't you take a variety of flavors, mustard and onion, delicious, and throw those on those pretzel pieces and spin it back out as a brand new product. I realize it's not going to apply to the people we're probably talking to today, but that's like a really great example of how a company was able to take something that they had at waste and be able to turn it around into either a whole new product or figure out how to profit off of that, right?
Yeah.
I think a good example of this, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but like nesting, right?
Oh,
Nesting is
100%.
huge. And making sure that you're utilizing all of that material to the best, like you're like very little to no waste, right? And that
Yep.
comes with some of your CAD CAM, and how you're laying it out into that, and what you're telling your cutters, your laser cutters, or whatever. But that is another thing too, is really identifying, how you can nest some of your cutting things. But in any case, that's
For sure.
always a reference I like to use because it just makes sense. So in any case, okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. All right, Kelly, this is all you.
All right. So I'm going to kind of just take this as a, we've talked a lot about cost. We talked about the calculation. We've given you sort of before and after examples. And so some of you are probably wondering, like, this is great, but like, talk to me a little bit more about, give me examples of how your ERP can help me manage these things. And so I want to do that a little bit here, just spend a little bit of time on this. And again, some of it's repetitive, but I think it's important, and I want to wrap in sort of how the ERP does this. So accurate costing and tracking, right? Being able to do that analysis. Our ERPs, they capture the direct and those indirect costs, the materials, the labor, the overhead that we talked about in real time. That eliminates a lot of the manual labor and the guesswork. So we have built-in job costing and reporting tools to help you identify your cost drivers and areas for saving. We talk about the optimized pricing and profitability. Well, our ERP comes with a cost roll-up functionality, right? This helps to determine true cost of goods sold. That's huge. That's really important. You need to know that in order to be very profitable and get the most of the things that you're doing. So, detailed margin analysis and summary reports that we provide, these help businesses adjust pricing to stay competitive while making sure that they maintain that profitability. We talked about improved efficiency in the waste reduction. We just got through talking about this. Our automated workflows, they reduce those manual errors and the time spent on trying to capture that cost, right? Material requirements planning, MRP, big one. We ensure that you have the right materials at the right time, minimizing excess inventory and waste. We talked about real-time financial insights and forecasting. Well, we're going to give you the tool set for that as well. We have dashboards and reports, tons of them that provide instant visibility into these costs. That enables you to be proactive in your decision making. It helps with cash flow management by forecasting expenses and revenue-based things in real-time data. Hillary hit on this a little bit, but I think it's important to just mention it as well. When you take the ERP, but you also have all the tools necessary to just get the most out of everything you're doing. You talked about Nestlink, and so we offer a seamless integration with Nestlink, with WMS, with MES, lots of cool tools here. We talk about the Nestlink, like Hillary mentioned, that ensures efficient material utilization by automating sort of nesting processes, and it reduces scrap. And again, going back to cost, it helps you improve the cost accuracy. The warehouse management system, we have it. It optimizes the tracking and reduces carrying costs by improving that warehouse efficiency. The MES, or manufacturing execution system, that provides you real-time production visibility. And guess what? That improves things like the OEEs and the OLEs and the efficiencies and machine hookups that you can get through PLCs. and it helps you control costs. So the best part of it all is that, and I mentioned this earlier as well, is that everything we have here, the ERPs, the automated tools to help you with all of this, it's scalable, and it's scalable for your growth and your long-term success. So that's a key thing to point out, is that our ERP really truly does offer the scalability to ensure that your business grows and that you can continue to track and control cost effectively in our system. And then I'll have you take me to the next slide real quick. And I want to kind of just put a bow on things here. We talk about the complete ecosystem, right? And I mentioned a bunch of this in the previous slide, but there's a lot of info here today. And I just want to recap a couple different things here at a very high level. So we do offer the all-in-one solution. I mean, that is the closed loop that you see on the screen. That scales with your business and provides you these tools: the automated cost tracking, the cost breakdown, the customized dashboards, the seamless integration with financials and things. It's all here in an all-in-one solution. What I want to do is just leave you guys with this. Manufacturing profitability isn't just about what happens on the shop floor. It's about the entire ecosystem of costs. That's what impacts your margins. So when you take the time and you put the right technology in place, whether it's our ERP, the MES, some of those other tools I mentioned, or a combination of these, it can truly be the difference maker between a struggling operation and a thriving one. And I've seen both ends of that stick. What I can tell you is that we can help you with your data-driven decision making and help you control these costs and truly help you boost your profitability. With our ERPs, I guarantee that manufacturers, they're going to gain full visibility into these costs. They're going to improve the operational efficiencies, and you're going to make better or more informed decisions that help you be more profitable. So in the end, my stamp on all of this is better cost control equals better margins equals a stronger business. And we are certainly here to help you folks along that journey. And that's what I had, Hillary.
Okay. Well, that's kind of where we're at. And now it's kind of for you. So Monique, I'm going to see if there are any questions in the chat. So I'm not multitasking. Anything that, we can help answer or try to.
Well, yeah, we will jump into, we got a few of them that came through, but number one, the whole margins, I think everybody kind of likes that. Better margins make a lot of people more happy. So thank you, Hillary and Kelly, for all that good information. So let me jump into the two questions that initially came in. I think this is a really good one. The question is, how does the total cost of manufacturing differ from other cost metrics, specifically like production costs? And I know you kind of touched on that, Hillary. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so, your total manufacturing costs really focus solely on expenses associated with your entire manufacturing process. So includes like those direct materials, the direct labor, all that overhead. In contrast, the production costs, they encompass, I think, more of a broader scope. So it includes like your marketing, your distribution, your consulting that you bring in. Let's say maybe you deal with government contracts, anything that's like ITAR related or CMMC or anything like that, like I know many of you might be dealing with right now. So really just kind of figuring out how to separate those out. And again, like the if you need me to expand on that a little bit more. My brain's a little bit rusty right now, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. Did that help at all? Or if not, let me know and I can expand a little bit differently.
Got a thumbs up, so that's good there. Okay, we'll move over to the next one. Can you provide any tools that you would recommend for calculating or managing total cost of manufacturing more effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and Kelly, feel free to chime in on this one too, but my first initial is, of course, tools in your ERP system. Like Kelly had mentioned a lot of those, your WMS, your inventory management, your MES. So, you know, all those comprehensive costs by tracking and analyzing your capabilities. I think MES is a really big one right now, especially with, you know, is your machine down? Is it operating? Is it not? You know, what's it pumping out? And then also like figuring out how all these systems kind of help integrate with your financial data and all of those metrics that you got coming out with production. And then just real, like, again, I cannot express enough having insight into all of that information in one platform. Again, like an ERP, you know, and then getting your MRP within your ERP is even huge. So if you deal with an MRP, that alone, you could be getting so much more with different kind of tool, and really just getting insight into those costs. And then you're just being more informed about that. So like, you know, we know that QuickBooks is great and fine and dandy, and I'm sure a lot of you use that. I remember as a small manufacturer, we used QuickBooks and then we used a ton of Excel, and I cannot express how much that we probably lost money on because we weren't keeping costs of tracking like everything we were using. Of course, we were a small business, so we were kind of just trying to get whatever we could to sell, and then get ourselves out there. But our project management and all that kind of stuff, no. So in any case, any extra thoughts on that one, Kelly?
Yeah, I think you did a great job in recapping that. The only other thing I would add that I see a lot of manufacturers using right now, which I see a lot of benefit in terms of when we're talking about tools that help control costs, is our APS, which is the Advanced Planning System. So again, we talked about Nestlink, we talked about the WMS, we talked about MES, but when you've got a scheduling platform that you know, looks at multi-constraints, such a big thing today, right? When you've got a machine that you know is more efficient than another machine, but it's just, you know, you typically schedule to a default machine, or you typically just schedule to a default employee, but you've got these metrics that look at efficiencies. And then you have a tool behind the scenes that goes, hold on, you know, you're projecting that you're going to finish this job in 100 hours and it's going to be due at the end of April, but I actually looked into everything within your ERP and I can spit this out actually for you at the beginning of April. Oh, and by the way, we can do it in 60 hours because I found more efficient ways for you to do this and save money at the same time. Wow, what a powerful tool that is, right? That is something that is one of the #1 things we talk about when we're talking prospects and or customers. So great recap in there. I would just add the APS to that as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Monique, any other things that are coming?
No, that was it. Those were the 2 that came in. I think you guys did a great job answering them. I do want to say thank you to everyone who is joining us today, and we hope you found this webinar very helpful. Remember that you can keep a lookout for the recording, as I know there was a lot of information in this webinar. You will get the recording next week, so keep a lookout from mfginfo@ecisolutions.com. And we hope that you guys have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, folks.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care now.